I want you to think about this. Allegedly, Sean Carter is responsible for enacting Hype Williams to put Aaliyah on a faulty plane to move her out the way as punishment for rejecting him, and so he could level up Beyonce.
It's the kind of rumor that hits like a flash grenade in the middle of an already chaotic scene. An alleged explicit recording of Beyoncé with the late Pimp C, hidden away for years, suddenly surfacing in the very heart of the FBI's probe into Sean Diddy Combs. Sources describe it as a relic from the early 2000s, a grainy but unmistakable piece of Diddy's rumored blackmail vault, now pried open by federal hands. And unlike the countless tall tales that swirl through the industry, this one isn't just embarrassing, it's a time bomb with a timer that may already be ticking. We're talking about a direct link from Beyoncé, the queen of carefully curated perfection, straight into the orbit of Diddy's notorious late-night freak-off gathering. In the wrong context, that's not a mere blemish. That's a gaping crack in the Carter family's glass castle.
I don't think they are scared of him. I think they more so, they don't want him to embarrass their reputation and things that they've been known for. You understand?
The whispers say the footage didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was flagged during the cataloging of digital evidence seized from Combs' properties, part of the mounting RICO case that has his empire under siege. Federal investigators reportedly have hours of compromising material tied to the biggest names in entertainment. But this tape is the one sending shockwaves through boardrooms and backrooms alike. Imagine the optics. Beyoncé, an artist who spent 2 decades projecting grace, control, and untouchable artistry, suddenly thrust into the same file directory as the most salacious allegations against Diddy. The image management machine she's built with Jay-Z is now under strain like never before. And this is happening while both of them are already navigating the fallout from lawsuits, old accusations, and an industry increasingly eager to turn on its former god. Jay-Z, according to multiple insiders, has responded not with denial, but with a jaw-dropping offer. $500 million to bury the tape before it ever sees daylight. That's not the kind of number you float unless you believe the damage could be irreversible. And the question gnawing at everyone is simple. What's in that footage that warrants $500 million in hush money? Protecting Beyoncé's image alone doesn't explain it. There's a growing suspicion that this isn't just about marital dignity. If the recording places Beyoncé within the framework of Diddy's now scrutinized events, and if Jay himself can be tied to the logistics or the guest list of those nights, prosecutors could be holding a chain that links him directly to the criminal enterprise. For a man whose business interests span music, sports, and luxury, all dependent on his brand's invincibility, even the whiff of conspiracy could be fatal.
Beyonce for sure. I love her. I love Beyonce. Jay-Z too, I really admire the both.
Some industry veterans are already connecting dots between the tape's timeline and long whispered rumors of friction in the early Carter romance. The story goes that Beyoncé and Pimp C, then riding the crest of UGK's influence, shared more than a brief encounter, one that overlapped awkwardly with her developing relationship with Jay-Z. To the outside world, this is pure tabloid poison, betrayal layered on top of scandal, all unfolding at a moment when the Carters' power dynamic is already under siege. For Jay, the stakes aren't just legal or financial, they're personal. A leak like this doesn't just chip away at his empire. It threatens to rewrite the story of his marriage, turning him from the savvy mogul beside a queen into the man who couldn't keep control over his own household or his own narrative.
Is he this gangster that behind the scenes is that him? Or is that
Shout out to Wendy Williams.
And then there's the broader context, the Diddy connection. The same investigation that unearthed this tape has already pulled in mountains of testimony about parties that allegedly blended luxury with coercion, influence with entrapment. Federal agents are sifting through footage, guest logs, and private communications, mapping an entertainment world where favors were traded like currency and where loyalty often hinged on who had compromising material on whom. If Jay-Z's name surfaces in that matrix, even peripherally, the perception alone could be devastating. This is a man who's built his entire post-rap era on respectability, strategic partnerships, and access to spaces most hip-hop artists never dreamed of entering. A single proven link to Diddy's alleged network could collapse years of political goodwill, corporate alliances, and billion-dollar valuations. It doesn't help that the Carter image machine has been under subtle pressure for months, from Ye's increasingly erratic public swipes at the family, some of them grotesquely targeting their youngest, to Jay-Z fighting off a lawsuit accusing him of unthinkable acts from decades ago, there's been a slow erosion of the impenetrable aura they once wore. Beyoncé's own public appearances have been tightly managed, but even her latest ventures, like the launch of her Surdivas line, have been read by some as quiet attempts to control the narrative by doubling down on heritage and luxury branding. The fact that fans were speculating about hidden tributes to her son Sir in the product name only reinforces how closely every Carter move is now being scrutinized for deeper meaning. Against that backdrop, $500 million becomes more than just a payoff. It's an attempt to buy time, to halt a chain reaction before it moves from gossip logs to legal briefs. Insiders suggest that the number itself is strategic, pitched high enough to outbid any media outlet, platform, or private collector who might think about monetizing the footage. But that tactic carries its own risks. The very act of offering such a sum is a signal flare that the tape's contents are explosive. In a world where leaks are currency, nothing whets appetites more than proof that someone is willing to move heaven and earth to suppress a file. The clock is ticking in more ways than one. Federal investigators are methodical, and they don't release evidence to the public on a whim, but they do use leverage. If this tape becomes a bargaining chip in Diddy's case, it could end up in the hands of prosecutors eager to flip allies into witnesses. And that's where Jay-Z's alleged desperation begins to make even more sense. Better to pay privately if possible than to risk having the footage introduced in open court, where no amount of NDA shielding could contain the fallout.
And I'm not saying allegedly.
Oh.
I'm saying, Sean Carter, you're a piece of shit. Taking Pimp C wasn't bad enough. You just want to go down there and you want to just remove all of the balls from every real gangster in Houston.
And yet, the Whisper Network is relentless. Some say the footage isn't just a quick encounter, but shows extended moments, the kind that leave little room for plausible deniability. Others hint that it captures interactions with a setting or individuals already named in sealed parts of the RICO filings. The kind of detail that could make it admissible as evidence of a pattern, not just a personal misstep. If that's true, then the scandal isn't only about who's in the tape, but about what the backdrop reveals. In the end, whether the footage ever sees daylight may not matter as much as the perception that it exists. In an industry built on controlling the lens, the mere idea that Beyoncé, the ultimate master of her own image, could be caught in someone else's narrative is enough to destabilize the Carter stronghold. And if that narrative ties back to Diddy's crumbling empire, the question hanging over all of this is, and now the ripples are hitting the Carter household from the inside. In the midst of whispers about the footage, Beyoncé unveils her new venture, a premium line draped in deep Southern heritage, moonshine folklore, and the kind of storytelling that feels almost too perfectly timed. Officially, the name honors her great-grandfather, a Prohibition-era distiller who hid bottles in cedar knots for friends and family. But in the corners of fan forums, a different theory is gathering steam. They point to the branding's Texas undertones, the rustic edge, and note how it overlaps with the late Pimp C's own Southern legacy. Is this a quiet nod to a buried chapter of her past with him? Or is it a clever feint, a way to preemptively frame the conversation, folding any potential revelations into a romanticized origin story before the tape can do the talking? Brand experts we've spoken to call it a masterstroke in damage control. By setting the narrative herself, Beyoncé ensures that if the Pimp C link becomes public, it's already been softened, woven into a family heritage story instead of a salacious scandal. Yet, others in the industry see something else. Not confidence, but an early sign she's bracing for impact. The deliberate Southern imagery, the controlled rollout with Moet Hennessy, even the sly lyrical references in her launch posts, all of it could be camouflage, hiding the fact that she's maneuvering behind the scenes to contain a storm. And that containment, if it's happening, isn't just about her.
Jay-Z got his whooped by his sister-in-law on camera. What's her name? Solange. You got it. The feds ain't step in and do nothing. The feds don't care about you getting your whooped.
Because in the absence of her direct public statements, it's Blue Ivy who has been stepping into the light. From her polished appearances on red carpets to sharing the stage with her mother on the Renaissance World Tour, she's been carrying herself with the poise of someone twice her age. The visual is deliberate, a united, high-achieving family, radiating legacy and artistry. But some insiders suggest there's more calculation here. The more Blue becomes the face of Carter family excellence, the less oxygen is left for uncomfortable questions about her parents' private entanglements. Could her elevated profile be less about personal ambition and more about running interference? It's a risky strategy. For every wave of admiration Blue receives, there's a countercurrent of speculation. People are starting to notice who isn't in the spotlight. Sir Carter. While his twin sister Rumi has been making public cameos alongside Beyoncé and Jay-Z, Sir remains conspicuously absent. Officially, he's quiet and prefers a private life, as Tina Knowles has explained. Unofficially, There's a whisper that his absence may be strategic, part of a protective wall meant to shield him from the media's sharpest edges, while the tape story simmers. If the footage implicates moments tied to his name or birth era, keeping him out of view could be about more than respecting his personality. It could be about keeping him from becoming collateral in a global spectacle.
How do you know I'm not a gangster, or used to be a gangster? I've been in the music industry for 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, the industry's filled with gangsters.
There's a detail that's haunting longtime observers: the uncanny alignment of dates between the alleged tape's origins and the day Pimp C's life abruptly ended. His demise on December 4th, 2007 was ruled as a mix of natural causes and a toxic substance, but that date is also Jay-Z's birthday. In an industry where symbolism and timing are rarely accidental, the overlap has fed years of quiet speculation. Now, with the rumor of this tape resurfacing, that strange calendar coincidence feels less like trivia and more like a breadcrumb pointing toward a bigger, darker narrative. Pimp C had a reputation for blunt truth-telling and for refusing to conform to the unspoken codes of the business. In his final months, he was outspoken about behind-the-scenes manipulation, power plays, and the way certain figures controlled narratives. If he had possession of, or even knew the whereabouts of, compromising material involving figures as untouchable as Beyonce and Jay-Z, that knowledge could have been a dangerous liability. The possibility that someone in his position might have been silenced, not by scandal but by absence, is a thread many are now pulling on.
How did you feel initially when Beyonce started dating Jay-Z, who is very successful, but he's also, generally considered a gangster rapper?
The timeline becomes even more unsettling when you consider the climate of that era. The late 2000s were rife with whispered accounts of private gatherings that blurred the lines between celebration and leverage, with key players guarding footage, photographs, and stories like currency. If this alleged recording truly existed back then, it could have been part of a larger vault of evidence capable of shifting power balances overnight. Pimp C's connection to Southern hip-hop royalty meant he wasn't just an outsider, he was in proximity to the very circles that could have produced or been exposed by such a tape. And while official reports closed the book on his passing within weeks, those in his inner circle have long hinted that questions lingered. The nature of his final days, the unfinished projects, the sudden silence from certain collaborators, all of it takes on a different tone in light of the current federal investigations. The idea that the tape could reappear now in the middle of a sweeping RICO probe into Diddy's empire raises the stakes beyond scandal. It suggests that whatever forces operated back then may still be at play today, only this time with far more to lose. If this connection proves real, the fallout could reach well beyond the Carters, forcing the industry to confront a history it has spent over a decade burying. Pimp C's story would shift from a tragic end to a pivotal turning point, reframing him not as a casualty of lifestyle, but as a figure caught in the crossfire of high-level control. The resurfacing of the tape could bring closure for some, chaos for others, and for the public, an unfiltered glimpse into the machinery of influence that shapes not just careers, but destinies. There's another chilling layer to all of this, one that takes us back to December 4th, 2007. That was the day Pimp C was found lifeless in a Los Angeles hotel room, the official story tying it to natural causes and a toxic mix of substances. But the date itself has always unsettled those who knew the industry's internal calendar. It was Jay-Z's birthday. For conspiracy watchers, that coincidence has never sat right, especially considering the swirl of whispered grudges, business entanglements, and now the revelation that a tape linking Pimp C to Beyonce may have existed even back then. In the years since, those who dig into the darker corners of the music world have raised the possibility that Pimp C's passing wasn't simply bad luck or self-inflicted harm. He was known for speaking bluntly, for calling out what he saw as exploitation and corruption, and for refusing to play by certain unspoken rules. If he did indeed have knowledge or even possession of compromising material involving the biggest names in the game, it's not hard to imagine how dangerous that would have made him. The resurfacing of this alleged footage now only sharpens that question. Was he silenced before he could use it? The industry's history is littered with sudden losses that arrive at moments of high tension, when alliances shift and fortunes hang in the balance. In Pimp's case, the months leading up to his demise had been marked by increasingly candid interviews, unfiltered commentary about the state of hip-hop, and a refusal to align with the very power structures that have since been implicated in federal investigation. If he had leverage, in the form of a tape that could embarrass or implicate, the idea that it vanished with him has become an unsettling piece of lore.
Who you made love with?
Diddy, Bow Wow, Busta Rhymes.
Now with the FBI combing through Diddy's seized archives and the whispers of this recording growing louder, the old timeline feels less like coincidence and more like a breadcrumb trail. The juxtaposition is eerie, a man's voice going silent on Jay-Z's birthday, a potential piece of evidence disappearing into the ether, and years later, that same kind of evidence suddenly appearing in a case that could entangle the Carters themselves. The weight of that symmetry can't be ignored. If the tape truly carries what insiders suggest, it's not just scandal that's about to be unearthed, it's a direct line into the shadowy mechanics of power in the music business. Pimp C's untimely end could transform, in the public mind, from a tragic footnote into a pivotal chapter of a larger story, one where influence, loyalty, and survival are negotiated in ways most fans never see. And if that chapter is reopened now, the fallout could reach far beyond the Carters, forcing the industry to confront truths it has spent over a decade keeping buried.
I know so much on how you got where you are, how you stepped on many people.
We've seen it before. When the walls close in, public figures often circle their family around them, using appearances, product launches, and philanthropic gestures to deflect attention. But that's a dangerous balancing act. In trying to protect their children from the fallout, the Carters may be unintentionally pulling them deeper into the glare. The more they become part of the image-saving machinery, the more invested the public becomes in dissecting their every move. And if the tape does surface, the scrutiny won't stop at Jay and Beyonce. It will spill over, dissecting the family as a whole. And then there's the wild card, Ye. Once a close ally, now a volatile voice on the fringes. His recent tirades about Hollywood sacrifices and controlled celebrities have been dismissed by some as noise, but others hear something more pointed. He's name-dropped Jay-Z and Beyonce in the past, claiming they're part of a network beholden to shadowy forces. In the current climate, those words read differently. If he does have insider knowledge from his Roc Nation years, about Diddy's parties, about the blackmail cachet, about who was where and when, then he's sitting on dynamite.
I'm sorry, I'm just like really, I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck. During those years, you're still stuck 21 years later.
The question hanging over all of this is whether Ye will keep needling from the sidelines or decide to fully unload. With his appetite for chaos and his willingness to burn bridges, he could, if he chose, put details into the public domain that no payout could retract. And given his current pattern of lacing personal vendettas with explosive claims, it's not unthinkable that he might seize the moment if it means dragging Jay-Z into deeper trouble. So what happens if he does? What if, in one unfiltered post, he connects the dots between the footage, Diddy's alleged operations, and names the people in the room? Would that be the moment the Carters' carefully controlled empire finally fractures? Or could they, as they have so many times before, turn even that into another masterclass in survival? Tell us, do you think Ye is holding back a truth that could blow this whole story apart? Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep watching the shadows.